Let us begin not with an answer, but with a question most fear to ask. What if everything you're doing, everything you've built your life around, is quietly hollow? Do not rush to dismiss it. Let the question take root. Let it echo. Picture your mornings, the ritual of rising, the mechanical sequence of tasks, the clocked-in identity you wear like armor. You move through your days with silent obedience, enduring fatigue like it's a badge of honor, clutching the whispered promise that one day, someday, this will all make sense. That, one day, when you finally retire, you will awaken to life. But what if that one day is the grandest illusion of all? What if retirement, the golden oasis on the horizon, is not salvation, but a mirage, carefully constructed to keep the psyche asleep? In truth, the idea of retirement may not be a reward, but a sedative, a carrot hung before the soul to justify a lifetime of postponement, a life deferred, a vitality numbed. And when that day finally arrives, if it does, will you still know how to live? Or will the muscles of joy, spontaneity, and selfhood have long since atrophied beneath layers of routine, submission, and socially endorsed self-abandonment? Do not mistake this message as criticism. I am not here to insult your labor, nor mock your endurance. I am here to awaken something, to lift the veil on a deception so embedded in our modern mythology that it parades as virtue. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And perhaps nowhere is this more true than in the cult of retirement, where the soul is traded for security, and life is mortgaged for a future that may never come. The real danger does not dwell in darkness. It hides in daylight, in the normal, in what society praises as success, even as it quietly drains your essence. The deception is not dramatic. It is banal. It lives in habits, in schedules, in unspoken contracts that say, you must suffer now to earn your right to live later. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you stopped asking for permission to be alive? This article is not just a critique of the system. It is an invitation, a call to reclaim your time, your breath, your presence, now, not someday. For the self does not dwell in retirement plans. It dwells in the present moment, the only place where life, real life, ever begins. You were conditioned, not consciously, but with quiet repetition, to defer your life, to store away your vitality like coins in a jar, in exchange for the promise of a few gilded years at the end. Work now, enjoy later. A mantra so familiar, it hardly raises suspicion. It sounds rational, noble even. But hidden within it is a tragic omission. No one guarantees that later will arrive. There are no assurances that your body, your spirit, your clarity of mind will still be intact when that long-awaited freedom comes. And while you wait, what do you give away? What pieces of your soul are you bargaining in the name of future rest? What moments have you exiled? What passions have you silenced? All in service of an abstract reward you're not even certain you'll receive. Is it not peculiar, perhaps even perverse, that the one moment you are permitted to truly live is when your fire has already dimmed? When your knees ache, your sleep is fragmented, and your joy is diluted by prescriptions and limitations? This is not liberation. It is irony. And here lies the bitter truth. You are the one holding the key to your own cage. Since childhood, you've been handed a blueprint. Study, comply, buy, store, survive. Then, if you obeyed perfectly, the gates of retirement would open and meaning would be restored. But look around. How many of the retired are truly alive in the way they once dreamed? How many are dancing with wonder, chasing visions they had buried? How many have reached this end with full hearts, unburdened by regret, untouched by the quiet whisper of, "I missed my life"? And how many are simply enduring, waiting, not for freedom, but for finality? Carl Jung once warned, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. Likewise, a life that has never been fully lived in the now cannot be resurrected by the empty promise of someday. The real tragedy is not that we grow old, it's that we postpone aliveness until it's too late to remember how. Listen, not with your intellect, but with the part of you that remembers how to feel. This is not a condemnation of work or of structure. It is an invitation to descend beneath the surface and ask the question most avoid: why? Why do you live the way you do? For whom have you delayed your joy? What inner voice taught you that it is noble to suffer now in order to savor later? And who promised that your senses, your curiosity, your vitality would still be intact when later finally arrives? This is not a complaint, it is a spiritual alarm. What is truly at stake is not just your distant future, it is your vanishing present. And this no one teaches you to see. No one tells you that the system you've built your life around may no longer be worthy of your obedience. It was forged in a different era, with different bodies, different minds, and different expectations. Yet you follow it still, as though time has not moved on. Look closely. Observe how most people move like somnambulists, enacting a collective ritual of survival masquerading as purpose. One step, then another. A choreography of slow spiritual erosion, rehearsed for decades. And you who feel the misalignment, you silence it. You dim that intuitive knowing because it threatens the scaffolding of your entire identity. To question it would require you to change, to awaken. And that, perhaps, is more terrifying than a lifetime of quiet desperation. Because to take ownership of your time is to take ownership of your soul. It is to no longer hide behind schedules, sacrifices, or social approval. And that is not only uncomfortable, it is revolutionary. Is it not strange that the promise of freedom is dangled like a prize at the end of exhaustion? That joy is postponed until your joints ache and your dreams have faded into habit? How often have you whispered to yourself, "One day when I retire, I'll finally live"? And what if that day never comes? Or worse, what if it does, but you no longer know what it means to be alive? Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you cannot become anything while you are sleepwalking through someone else's timeline. Awakening requires that you stop waiting. Life does not wait. It does not pause for your pension plan, nor does it grant extensions for the soul deferred. It moves, relentless and indifferent, spending your time even as you try to save it. The calendar does not pity your sacrifices. The years you hoard for later are already being spent. By your body, by your breath, by your unlived dreams. This is not some glossy motivational chant. It is a symbolic autopsy of the cultural lie we've embalmed in the word retirement. For what is retirement, truly, if not the epitaph of an unlived life? A mirage offered as reward, when in truth it often arrives as a quiet grave, a place where your energy is gone, and yet your desire to begin again still flickers, tragically late. And here lies the most unsettling truth. No one is holding a gun to your head. No one is chaining you to the blueprint. You rise each morning and choose it. You follow the script. You silence that small voice that once cried out from your depths, "There must be more than this." That voice, raw, real, once sacred, has not died. It has been buried under years of obedience, muffled by the rituals of routine, drowned in the noise of what you were told was security. But it still whispers beneath the surface of your days. What if you stopped waiting? What if you placed value not in the distant someday, but in the fragile now? What if joy was not a retirement gift, but a radical act of reclaiming this hour, this breath, this fleeting pulse of aliveness? But to do that, you would have to disobey. You would have to tear the page from the social script, throw away the calendar marked by someone else's expectations, and begin to live according to the quiet laws of your own soul. And then, silence. The kind of silence that unnerves. The silence that settles in when illusion falls away and the raw truth stands uncloaked. In that stillness, you begin to hear the one thing you've tried to drown out for decades, the heartbeat of your unlived life. The ache of time spent, the weight of days forgotten, the grief of waiting. This is not advice. It is not comfort. It is a mirror. And what you see reflected in it may not soothe you, but it may awaken you. And that is where freedom begins. Are you ready? Likely not. But let us proceed anyway. You've glimpsed the trap. This illusion of retirement as the grand golden finale of life. But now, let us peer deeper into the cavern of the unconscious, into something even more disturbing. The way you've been conditioned not only to wait for retirement, but to long for it, as if it were redemption itself. As if all the years before, it were but a prelude to a final act that makes the entire performance worthwhile. This is not mere habit. This is psychic programming, emotional engineering on a mass scale. The collective has taught you that rest must be earned through suffering, that joy is a delayed transaction, not a birthright. And what is that if not a sophisticated form of slavery, one without visible chains where you clasp the shackles willingly and call it virtue? This is the psychological spell of our age, to wear exhaustion as a badge of honor, to glorify burnout as if it were evidence of nobility. When someone says, "I haven't stopped all week," we applaud. But no one whispers the obvious truth, that this is not strength, it is sickness. Since when did immolation become sacred? Since when did we confuse self-erasure with discipline? Look around you. How many souls are sleepwalking through their lives, repeating days like punishments, cycling through weeks like mechanical rituals? They rise with no inner fire, move through life with no vitality, return home only to anesthetize themselves in front of glowing screens. They are not living, they are surviving, waiting for a salvation called later, as if time had no end, as if life granted refunds. But it doesn't, and death never sends an invitation, it simply arrives. And here is the truth that stings most deeply. If you do not learn how to live now, you will not suddenly awaken to life when you retire. Life is not a switch flipped by a date on a calendar. It is a muscle. It is a discipline. And if you have spent decades deferring joy, outsourcing purpose, and obeying schedules not your own, what makes you believe you will know how to wield freedom once it's handed to you? You won't, I assure you. The psyche adapts, it adjusts to survival, it becomes fluent in postponement. And when freedom finally arrives, you will not meet it with celebration. You will meet it with panic. You will be rusted by inertia, hollowed by obedience. Your days will be your own, yet you won't know what to do with them. And so, the unconscious will do what it always does when it loses its compass. It will seek new cages. You will busy yourself with the trivial. You will cling to meaningless routines. You will manufacture burdens and anxieties, not because you desire them, but because you were never taught to self-govern. And that is the poisoned root of the whole design. No one ever taught you what it means to live. They only taught you how to comply. And let us be clear, complying is not the same as living. To live truly is to choose, to feel, to risk, and to fail. It is to dare the unknown, to fall out of step with the herd and walk through the wilderness of your own soul. Such living does not fit neatly inside the boxes of employment contracts or retirement schemes. It is wild, unpredictable, and yes, uncomfortable. But it is also real. Have you ever asked why so many fall into despair after retirement? Why vitality fades? Why time suddenly seems to accelerate toward the end? It is not simply age. It is because the structure that once propped up their identity has collapsed. Even if they hated the work, it defined them. It gave them something to point to and say, "I am this." Without it, there is a void. And that void is not merely about lack of work. It is about lack of meaning. But meaning does not arise from schedules or salaries. True purpose is not assigned, it is discovered. And it emerges only when you dare to look within, when you confront yourself outside the systems that have shaped and used you. Most people never do. They remain pawns in a machine that extracts their time, their energy, their imagination, leaving behind only routines and regret. So here is a deeper question. How many times have you asked yourself whether what you do actually makes sense? Not whether it's productive, not whether it pays well, but whether it awakens something in your soul. Does it make you feel alive, not just busy? Are you building something that matters to your spirit, even if no one sees it, even if no one claps? If you cannot answer yes, then you are living on borrowed time, someone else's blueprint. And retirement will not save you. It will only change the setting, not the sensation. The same emptiness, repackaged. And do you wish to know what's more unsettling? The system knows. It knows the cost of awakening, and it fears it. Because a whole human being, a person who lives from the self, is dangerous. A fulfilled individual cannot be manipulated by fear. They do not consume blindly. They do not obey simply because they were told to. A person who lives in the now has no need to buy their dreams back from the future. They are already dreaming and doing. And so, the world prefers you asleep. It prefers you docile, worn thin, hooked on hope, enchanted by a future that may never come. So, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you return to the narrative, bow to the myth of someday? Or will you plant your feet firmly in the present and whisper, enough? Because you don't need to wait to begin. You don't need to be 65 to travel, to start anew, to love fiercely, to learn fearlessly, to create something sacred. Retirement is not a calendar event. It is a conscious state. And you can retire today from the illusions that bind you. But beware. This kind of liberation comes at a cost. You will no longer fit in. You will make others uncomfortable. They will wonder, who does this person think they are? Because breaking the narrative is an act of rebellion. But then, ask yourself this. Would you rather suffer the silence of conformity or the vibrant, untamed roar of your truth? There is one question that cuts through all others. If you knew you wouldn't make it to 65, would you live differently today? And if your answer is yes, then you are already living the wrong story. Because you should not need guarantees to begin living your truth. Life does not bargain with certainties. It unfolds through the unpredictable rhythm of the present moment, and what you possess in truth is only now. Forget the illusion they call retirement. Begin to contemplate something far more dangerous and far more liberating. Freedom. But not the kind advertised by insurance brochures and gilded slogans. No, I speak of the radical inner freedom to be who you truly are, to awaken each day not as a servant of the clock, but as a sovereign of your own time. This kind of freedom cannot be granted by a pension or stamped onto a diploma. It is born the moment you dare to pause, look inward and declare, this life is mine and I will no longer wait. Because if you do not claim it, others will claim it for you, and they will not choose what is best for your soul. They will choose what benefits their machinery. So ask yourself, are you ready to release the script? Or will you continue reciting the lines of a play you never wrote? Choose now, because the truth, as inconvenient as it is this: you may not be here later. Up until now, we have spoken of retirement as a cultural mirage, a golden promise dangled just far enough to keep you obedient. But beneath that machinery lies something more terrifying than any deadline: emptiness. That haunting space we flee from, where tasks fall silent and only your consciousness remains. This is what retirement unveils for many: time without structure. And what they meet in that silence is not serenity, but vertigo. Because time without meaning is not a reward, it is a trap. A vast void that cannot be filled by a vacation or cured by a pension. It can only be healed by the slow, deliberate crafting of a life infused with purpose at every stage, not just at the end. So here is the question that should echo through you like thunder. Who would you be without your work? Not what you would do, but who you would become. Without titles, without productivity, without applause. For if your entire identity is stitched together by the role you perform, then you are not a person, you are a cog. And once that function is gone, what remains? What self survives when the noise of duty fades? This is the secret terror no one dares name. Many do not know how to be with themselves. They cannot sit still without guilt, cannot feel joy without justification, because our culture has etched a poisonous equation into the psyche. You are only as valuable as you are useful. And when usefulness ceases, when you are no longer producing or contributing or performing, society renders you invisible. And invisibility, when not chosen, becomes exile. This is the root of so many retirement crises. It is not aging that destroys us. It is the psychic collapse that comes when we no longer feel needed, when we have no identity outside of being necessary. So, do you understand now? Retirement is not rest. It is the moment when all the external noise stops and you are finally left alone with the question, who am I without all this? And here lies the brutal paradox. You have labored your entire life to reach a destination you are not prepared to inhabit. You have mastered the walk but never learned how to stop. And when you do, you crumble. There is pain more suffocating than toil, uselessness, that sense of being erased from the choreography of the world. And let me be clear, this has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with having no inner life beyond productivity. And so we must speak of something else too, emotional self-exploitation. That deep-seated belief that your worth depends on your output, that movement equals value, that rest equals failure. This too is a prison. A beautiful, modern prison, adorned with mantras of hustle and drenched in quotes about success. But it is still bondage. And many arrive at retirement only to discover they never truly learned how to enjoy, not without earning it, not without guilt. And so the question is not how to prepare for retirement. The question is how to stop fearing a life without chains. Because the real trial is not aging, it is liberation. And that begins with surrender. Surrender the roles you never chose. Surrender the goals you inherited. Surrender the voice that tells you rest is weakness. Because if you do not, you will become one of those who retire and slowly disappear, sitting in front of a screen, flipping through memories, unable to build the present because you never practiced how. And here is the bitter irony. The moment someone dares to break away, to say, I will not wait to live, society punishes them, labels them immature, irresponsible, because nothing threatens the collective trance more than someone who awakens. A soul who finds joy now casts a blinding light on those still asleep. It disturbs the sleepers. It makes them remember that they too once had dreams. And that, more than anything, is the danger of freedom. You become a mirror, a reflection of the life others denied themselves. And some will hate you for it, but others will remember. And that remembrance may be enough to break the spell. Do you feel the gravity of this? You are not waiting for money. You are not waiting for safety, nor for structure. You are waiting because the world whispered, again and again, that this is what a good life looks like. You were never taught to inhabit the present without guilt. You are conditioned to believe that suffering is the sacred toll for fulfillment. And now, you no longer know how to exist without suffering. But, hear me, it is possible. Of course it is. The path does not begin with surface affirmations or polished motivation. It begins, as all real transformation does, in solitude, with a descent into your inner life. You must sit with the self. You must strip away the roles and whispers and stories not your own. You must ask, what do I love? What stirs my blood? What have I buried in the name of utility? And when you begin to resurrect those exiled parts of yourself, the playful, the curious, the wildly imperfect, you begin to remember what it means to live, not just to function. You permit yourself to breathe without apology, to make mistakes without self-punishment, to feel joy without transaction. That, my friend, is true retirement. Not a date, not a pension, not a beachfront illusion of freedom. It is the moment you stop waiting, the moment you begin to live with presence, without asking for permission and without shame. And then something heartbreaking happens. You begin to see the time you lost, the years surrendered to someone else's narrative. You will feel sorrow. You may feel rage. You will look back at the space where your real life might have grown and grieve what never had the chance to breathe. But you will also feel something else. You will feel awake. And that is worth more than any pension, any praise, any post-retirement promise. You do not have to retire to live. You must retire from the lie. And you can do that now. Without approval, without waiting for applause, without a system's decree. Because life, real life, does not negotiate. It does not linger in abstractions. It requires teeth, soul, and the raw courage to meet yourself face to face. So I ask you, are you willing? Because if you are, then what lies ahead is not an ending. It is the birth of the self. It is the beginning of what Carl Jung called individuation, the reclamation of your inner authority. And if you are still here reading these words, something inside you is refusing to sleep. Something ancient, something silenced, something sacred is rising. Most people turn away when the truth begins to scrape the ego. Most walk off the path when the mirror appears. But you stayed. And that means something in you is ready to wake up. Ready to remember that the perfect moment is a myth crafted by fear. There is only now, this breath, this decision, this heartbeat, where you choose not to live like you are immortal. Because that is the cruelest deception of all. Living as if your days are infinite, as if your energy will never fade, as if your story will always have another chapter. You delay the conversation, the risk, the love, the dream, believing you will always have more time. But no, you are rusting while mapping future vacations. You are dissolving while waiting for permission to arrive. And this is not a call to burn it all down. It is a call to a silent revolution, the inner shift where your days become sacred again. The time. Start now. Inhabit your life. Don't count the hours. Feel them. Because this isn't an argument against the system. It is an invitation to your conscience. Are you still handing over your life in neat little boxes, letting someone else assign your worth? Or are you finally ready to reclaim your hours as holy ground? And if you reach old age, and I pray you do, what story will you whisper to yourself in the silence? Will you feel peace or regret? Will you speak with pride or hide behind the lifeless phrase, "I did what I had to do"? That tragic tombstone of countless souls who never dared to ask, "But who decided that for me?" So here is the question that will burn through you if you let it. What if you don't need more time, you need more courage? Courage to dismantle the mold. Courage to stop asking to be free. Courage to take your life in your hands, not as a prison, but as a canvas. Paint it, break it, begin again. But whatever you do, do not wait. Not until retirement. Not until they approve. Not until your life has shrunk into a room full of old photographs. Because the soul cannot be put on hold. It was never meant to wait. And if you silence it long enough, it stops speaking. And when that happens, you're not waiting anymore. You're gone. If something within this message stirred you, if even a single word mirrored your inner experience, I invite you to let your voice be heard in the comments. Have you encountered that soul whose presence feels like home, or are you still walking the sacred path back to yourself? Your story, however unfinished, may become the lantern in someone else's darkness, the very sign they didn't know they were searching for. And if someone close to you is silently struggling with the illusion that love must hurt, that self-abandonment is the price of connection, or that they are unworthy of peace, share this video with them. Help me reach the ones who need to remember. Real love does not demand that we shrink. True connection does not ask for sacrifice of the soul. And the most vital union we will ever form is the one with our own inner truth. Before you go, I invite you to